Okay. I think I should share I have something very brief, something that I can talk to at least to guide the conversation. But let me just share. Because
Share
ultimately it
your
doesn't
screen.
have any, yes, I have.
Okay, excellent.
It doesn't have a lot. So this is an illustration of the number of students that have repeated and the ones that have not in each class as at the time of the study. So that formed the statement of problem that, okay, if we have this amount of people repeating and there's no system to cater for them. So that's what this was about then. And of course, the research questions. And of course, the research questions that led to the objectives. So each question eventually became an objective.
Wow, wow, that's great.
Okay. And this was I got it from another study, similar study in STEM, but
Okay.
it guided my literature review. So it formed some form of theoretical framework for the
Wow,
study.
wow, that's
So,
a great
and
one.
it led to this. This was the conceptual framework
Okay.
I eventually used in the study.
Hmm. Hmm. Excellent.
Okay, so,
Excellent.
and of course, I just tried to highlight the method very briefly.
So, I mean, like, we started off with as soon as I get back to you, so that we'll start with this. I mean, it
Okay,
makes it makes the most interesting case.
okay, okay.
Yeah, great.
All right. So, 12 o'clock it is.
A minute more, and then we are a go.
All right, sir.
Hello? Great. So you are welcome. I didn't realize my audio was off. Now, since 1969, the Nigerian Journal of Pharmacy has been in print. It's the official organ of the PSN. The Nigerian Journal of Pharmacy has also been in print, continuous print since 1971. First edition was in 1969. but since 1971, it's been in unbroken print. This sets the Nigerian Journal of Pharmacy as one of the oldest and the most prestigious publications that communicates research, policy briefs, and others about the pharmaceutical industry. It's also situated as the one journal that informs policymakers about happenings within the industry, impact of policies, and how the science of the profession is upheld. This situates the Nigerian Journal of Pharmacy in the position where it is promoting research among young pharmacists, early career pharmacists, and associate members of the PSN. All final year pharmacy students are considered as associate members of the PSN. And I want to say this may be your first engagement with the PSN, so you're welcome on board, right? Now, having shared a background about what the Nigerian Journal of Pharmacy is and what we stand for, I am the editor-in-chief of the Nigerian Journal of Pharmacy. The Nigerian Journal of Pharmacy started this brief or this series of webinars, Finding X, to find a way to communicate, to promote thinking about research, to promote interest in research, and also to ensure that pharmacists and young pharmacists can find the skills required to develop and innovate in their workspaces. This is the nexus around which the Finding X webinar series is anchored. I also want to enjoin you that over the next 8 weeks, we're going to be having this series of webinars occurring every Monday, same time. And we hope that if you have attended at least 7, that's not including today, that if you attend at least 7 of the webinars starting from next week, Monday, at the end of the series, you would have earned yourself a certificate. So that makes it very, very interesting. You will have, attained a certificate, and we will have short quizzes that will make this interesting in between. So you're welcome on board. Now to also tell you about the PSN Conference coming up in November this year. The PSN Conference is an annual gathering, and it's usually what it does is it brings policymakers, pharmacists, and other stakeholders together to share and then to also move the profession forward. It's also been an important area where pharmacists come together, meet policymakers, business people, and others to share skills and also to find a way to overcome what the industry finds as rallying points. Okay, so it's an important conference. What you need to do is immediately after this webinar, I would like you to go to the website psnnational.org. Okay, that's the website that you are seeing on your screen at this time, psnnational.org. That's the highlight on your screen, psnnational.org. On the screen, when it opens on the top left, you will see the banner for the conference, Omoluabi 2020, and you can click on register now. For pharmacy students and interns, for pharmacy students, registration is free. I'm aware that for interns and NYSC pharmacists, registration costs 5,000 Naira, but if you have paid the 5,000 Naira for capitation, right, you do not need to pay anything again for this conference. That's for interns and NYSC pharmacists.
Yes.
So once you register, just click here to register, and then you'll be taken to this form where you enter in your first name, middle name, last name, your PCN registration license number. For interns, you input your, your provisional registration number. You input your state of practice, your place of work, workplace address, state of origin, email, and phone number. These are required so that the team on the back end, if there are needs to verify or to clarify information, they can reach you. Okay, so once you do that, you click next. And when you go to the next page, you'll be prompted to provide your passport. Once you provide your passport, there's also another segment that asks you to upload a picture of your capitation receipt. You do not need to upload a picture of your capitation receipt at that point. It's been a stress for a number of people, so skip that process and get on with your registration. Your registration will not be stopped because you didn't upload your capitation receipt. So with that, I look forward to seeing every one of you at the PSN conference. It's going to be twofold. So we have the online participation via Zoom, and then we also have the on-site participation, which is limited due to the coronavirus pandemic at this time. Also want to state that the PSN has a resource available to you, which is the Medicine Information Center, and you can always reach the Medicine Information Center as a pharmacist. The telephone number is on the screen, and it will also be provided to anyone. You just need to send a text or call this number, and you'll have a pharmacist available to answer your questions about medicines, poisons, fake or substandard medicines. You can also report this. You can also report malpractice through this link, right? The email address is also as on the screen. Currently, the PSN is also building out a pharmacy tower project located on the island in Lagos. It's a huge undertaking, and there is a current roadshow where you can get more information about partnering with the PSN as a property investment. You can get returns if you participate in this scheme, right? So, it's one of the things that would be good if you're interested in property investment, Now, without further ado, I want us to start this webinar proper. I will start with a brief introduction of my co-panelist, pharmacist Joba Ojelabi. Is a bright young pharmacist, recently graduated from OAU Ife. Very interesting to note, my dad is also a pharmacist and he graduated from OAU. So it's amazing that our first guest on this Finding X webinars is a pharmacist from OAU. Pharmacist Joba Ojelabi, you are welcome.
Okay. Hi, Famtosi.
Very well, very well. Great to see you.
Pleasure is all mine. Good afternoon.
Oh, great.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Just to let you know, you can use the chat feature to post and get to know other people that are on this webinar. So chat with people, introduce yourself, so we can begin to get some research collaboration moving. Also note that within the frame of your Zoom, there is a Q&A button which you can use to ask questions, right? Now, before we get talking about pharmacist Ojelabi's research, I want to quickly do a rundown of what survey research is about. I'll just take the next 10 minutes. If you have your cup of coffee or your cup of hot chocolate, you can you can do well to go ahead while this webinar goes on. I want to take the time to also welcome all of our collaborators, including the YPG chairman. I see him on the webinar, pharmacist Issa Mohammed. Thank you so much for rendering your support and also for highlighting some of the things that are important for, for this kind of webinar. Thanks so much for your collaboration. We also have the PAN's national president and chapter president. Thanks so much. The PAN's national president is Mr. Daniel. Thanks so much. I'm not certain he's on this meeting right now. So I will, once I see him on here, I will also recognize him. So I look forward to, relating with everyone. Now we have a surprise guest on the way. He's somebody that's going to show you what it epitomizes to be a researcher who is also accessing grants. He just sent me a message right now that is going to be joining us in the next 20 to 30 minutes. So I expect that he's going to blow your mind with some of the information he's going to share. So please stay on the line. There are also a few giveaways we have on this webinar. If you miss it, you're on your own. So I will quickly do a brief rundown of what survey research entails. And then from there, I hope you can see my screen. Okay, good. Survey research designs are the most popular research methods used in pharmacy practice. It involves it involves procedures in quantitative research in which investigators administer a survey instrument. It could be via web, it could be hard copy survey questionnaires like we usually do in our pharmacy schools, and it could be a variety of other tools. For example, there are some tools that are guidelines for an interview, a key informant interview. We will see how all these come together to help you get your answers to your questions, right? In this procedure, survey researchers collect quantitative number data using questionnaires or interviews, and then analyze the data to describe trends about responses. Now, those trends can be, a snapshot, which is also called cross-sectional studies, or it can be taken over time and then combined, the results are pooled, and then a trend of data is shown. That is called longitudinal. Now, when do you use survey research? It is used to describe trends such as community interest. For example, you can decide to, survey pharmacists in your state and ask questions such as, how well do you know about pharmaceutical care? What's your attitude to the practice of pharmaceutical care? And how do you practice pharmaceutical care? One of the most commonly used methods in survey is called knowledge attitude practice method, or a framework that looks at the method, that looks at the knowledge of the practitioner, their attitude about the subject under study, and then how they practice, what you're studying. So you can look at the community as pharmacists, you can look at the community as students, you can look at the community as patients, and you can even further specialize your sample. You can look at hypertensive patients, you can look at different categories of patients. You can also use it as that survey research to determine individual opinions about policy issues, such as whether students need a choice of schools to attend. You can also look at things like, recently there was a policy at the advent of the COVID pandemic where the government, under the, through policy interventions by PSN, decided to waive duty on all imported finished pharmaceuticals so that we would not have shortages of medicines in Nigeria. In that respect, we can survey different technical interest groups and find out from them, what are your thoughts about this policy objective or this policy declaration by the government? Sometimes you can also look at, how do students, I know this one will be interesting to you, how do students feel about current policy of government to shut down schools and have them sit at home, right? That's an interesting one. I'm sure a number of people will say they're not feeling good about that. Okay, there's also, surveys also help us identify important beliefs and attitudes of individuals. For example, we just, myself and a research team just finished a 3-year-long survey of young people's access to contraceptives around the country. It was important to understudy the beliefs of both the caregivers and the caregivers, that's all of the healthcare workers. We looked at the youth themselves and other stakeholders. It was important to look at their beliefs because all of these things modify what happens with the policy of government. We also looked at, we are also going to look at what are the types of survey designs that are possible. So earlier on, I mentioned that you have cross-sectional survey designs, which just looks at a picture in time. And then we also have longitudinal designs, which look at the long-term data or trend in a particular sample. So if you look at this table, it gives us a brief point to consider about the differences between cross-sectional and longitudinal studies, right? In cross-sectional studies, you can look at attitudes and practices. You can also look at this as it changes over time in longitudinal. So when you're looking at it in longitudinal, you're describing trend over a period of time. You can look at community needs under cross-sectional. For example, you want to know, what do pharmacy students need at this time? I mean, if you're on this webinar, you can post in the comment section, post about some of the things you think you would need that can be delivered to you via webinar. Post some of your suggestions in the chat area. We're going to look through them and then also respond to some of them with solutions, right? So this research webinar, for example, came out of observational survey, right? We spoke to a couple of people and found out that a number of people felt like helping them with their research, to get started with their research at this time, might be of benefit. So like I said, post in the comment section. Let's know what some of the needs you might have in this time that we can support you with. Of course, no big giveaway. Don't ask for giveaway on this webinar. Okay, then you also have program evaluation. So you can evaluate programs using cross-sectional survey, right? You can, for example, ask, how effective has the public health campaigns that are being carried out on radio and TV, how effective has it been? And you just take a questionnaire, go to the streets of Lagos and ask people questions, right? That will give you an understanding of the program evaluation. Another one is you can look at group comparisons. So you can compare two disparate groups or two similar groups and ask them the same question and then analyze and find the difference. You can also do a national survey to compare groups. Longitudinal, like I mentioned, looks at trends, changes over time, and it's important in establishing trends. So with that, we will now talk about some of the possible longitudinal studies. There are trend studies, there are cohort studies. Cohort studies are also high quality studies. They help you establish, sometimes they help you establish association with verity, right? They're high quality studies. You can also have panel studies, right? It's a longitudinal survey design in which the researcher examines the same people over time. And it's important because it helps us establish some of the influences in the society, influences that are individual that may influence an endpoint. Now, key characteristics of survey research. You survey by selecting a sample from a large population. The population is usually finite, but sometimes the population may be infinite, right? So you sample from that population, but your sampling will require a sampling frame, right? Your population is usually the larger key, and then your sampling frame is usually your target population, and then you further sample from that large target population to form your logical sample, right? You collect data through questionnaires or interviews that are considered the survey tools, right? And then you can design instruments for data collection through something called standard procedures, right? Then obtaining a high response rate is also important for surveys, because for you to have it valid, for you to be able to extrapolate your findings to the population, then your sample must be representative, and there are set ways to make sure your sample is representative. We will not be covering that within this webinar, but in subsequent webinars, we will talk about that. So sampling from a population, you can sample from a population either using a probability method or a non-probability method. You always nudged by your supervisor, I'm sure, to use a probability method, even though it's more tedious. The reason why is to ensure that your results are reliable and consistent and can be comparable to another person doing the same research in the same area. The non-probability, can easily be done usually to either establish some basis for your research or to confirm that some of the things you want to control against actually exist within the population. With that, okay, here's a quick, this table shows us a quick difference between the population, which is the group of individuals having one characteristic that distinguishes them from other groups. For example, registered pharmacists in Nigeria. The target population or sampling frame is the actual list of sampling units from which a sample is selected. What is a logical sampling list for pharmacists in Nigeria? Any suggestions? Anybody know where we can obtain a sampling list of pharmacists in Nigeria? Of course, the PCN list, which is published every year, right? So you can obtain the list of pharmacists in Nigeria from the PCN list. Now, the sample is the group of participants in a study that is selected from your target population. One of the ways you can sample your population is, for example, the simple random sampling method. That you can do by writing out all the names of pharmacists on the list. That would be too tedious. We can do that, roll them up into papers, and then throw them into a large box, and then pull out, until you get your sample size. Of course, there is a method to determine your sample size too. We will also not be covering that in this webinar, but we hope that in subsequent webinars, we'll talk more in depth about this. Right. Now, questionnaires and interviews for survey research. In a survey research, you can have your participants either fill a mailed questionnaire, that's a physical questionnaire. You can either hand it over to them, or you can also have it self-administered, meaning that you are you're the interviewer, but you ask them the questions and fill the questionnaire on their behalf. Another way is participant filled questionnaire. So you hand it over to them and they fill it by themselves, right? On the other hand is where you have electronic questionnaires which are sent online, and then your respondents fill them and send them back to you, right? There are other methods too. You can survey people over the telephone, especially where you have large number of respondents. But it's important that you do not invest into such methods if you do not have a large bank of resources. It's very time consuming and also resource intensive, right? Now, having talked about these, I mentioned that there is instrument design, but that we would not emphasize so much on that at this time. The major thing we will talk about is that during your instrument design, you should be sure that your questions are a reliable way of finding out answers about your, that's the questions in the instrument are a reliable way of finding out answers to your research questions, right? Very, very key. If not, you will be asking questions that may be misconstrued by your respondents, and they will provide answers that do not match what you're looking for. A way to find out if both of them match, that's your questionnaire tool, the questions in your questionnaire and your research question, is by doing something called a reliability test. I see a hand up. I'm going to respond in a short while. Just give me 3 minutes just to run through this. Now, it's important, like I said, how you phrase or frame your questions. Questions should also, be framed in a way that they are responsive to the type of question you're asking. For example, personal, attitudinal, and behavioral questions are usually framed with Likert scales rather than direct response, being that some of them are sensitive and they require a bit more tact when you're phrasing your questions. There are also sensitive questions. For example, when you ask people in a questionnaire, are you currently sexually active? And you're speaking to teens or, people in a society, for example, where sexual activity is a bit more conservative. The views are a bit conservative in the surroundings. So you want to be careful in how you phrase your question. Also in your questionnaire, you can have open-ended questions and closed-ended questions. Your closed-ended questions will be answered by yes, no, or sometimes you can also use other types of, but then usually the questions cannot be interpreted beyond what your questionnaire entails. Open-ended questions, on the other hand, are more open to interpretations. They seek out the respondents' own views, and they allow them, talk more broadly about what they've experienced. So it's important to use all of these with some tact, so that you do not have an unwieldy questionnaire, and you do not also have something so summative that it appears as if you're the FBI and you're onto them, So it's important. This resource will also be sent to you. All the emails I know have been collected in the registration phase, so we will send all of this to you. Finally, what are the steps in conducting your survey research? Number one, decide if a survey is the best design to use. Number two, identify the research questions or hypotheses that you need to answer with your tool. And then, of course, when you're designing your tool, ensure that you also pre-test it, okay? Identify the population, the sampling frame, and the sample. Determine the survey design and data collection procedures. Develop or locate an instrument. Sometimes you will find that in your area of research, there has some people have already done some research and there is a validated questionnaire for your question. For example, if you're intending to survey patients about adherence, you can use the Morisky's medication adherence scale. There are about 3 different types or other scales, right? Those have been validated, right? Even if you're surveying about questions, you want to survey knowledge about hypertension, there's a knowledge on hypertension scale, which has been already validated. So except if you need to change the language, you do not need to revalidate those instruments. So develop or locate an instrument that's already valid for your sample. Administer the instrument. Once you administer the instrument, you retrieve the responses, analyze, and write your report. It's a quantitative result. So you would be expected to organize your result in terms of introduction, literature review, your methods. You describe your methods. You must try to put in a lot of effort into describing your methods, and then of course you have your discussion and conclusion. I also will encourage you that after getting to that endpoint, do not stop. Ensure that you go beyond that and publish your findings. Okay, very important. At this point, I want to call on pharmacist Joba Ojelabi. Hey, how are you?
Very well. Good afternoon.
Great to have you back. So what are your thoughts?
Well, first things first, I think we should thank you for that presentation. Apparently, you can take the teacher out of the school, but you cannot take the school out of the teacher. I mean, it was so nostalgic for me. Took me back to the first encounter with my supervisors. These were the basics that were covered, and they were very, very handy throughout the course of my study. Okay. So,
sorry, I have a power outage, but
okay.
My power is going to be restored soon. So let's just keep on.
Okay.
Okay, so pharmacist Joba, I will have you quickly talk about yourself.
Okay.
Just an introduction of yourself and campus life in general.
All right. My name is Jesu Joba Ojelabi, but I'm guessing that most of us already know that. I finished from IFE pharmacy earlier this year in January. I am currently seeking internship, my 1-year mandatory internship. I'm from Oyo State. Yes, I think that's the highlight of it for me. Campus life now. The beautiful thing about campus life is it's not static; it's a dynamic thing. So, if you're asking me about campus life, you're asking about my experience a year, 2 years ago, and I will not even lie, it was beautiful for me. As tedious as pharmacy was, I yes, I think I can claim that I had quite the time in Ife, and it was beautiful for me. Sadly, the COVID pandemic now has put a lot of things on hold for a lot of people, including school for the students. And I understand how frustrating that can get. I mean, not too long ago, you see trends built around the whole frustration and all that. But I think campus life is, or was, since I'm out of there now, was very beautiful for me. Okay. So, okay. I'm just going to be going straight to the study. Oh, good afternoon, sir. Welcome, Prof.
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Very well, sir. And you, sir?
Thank you. I'm doing well. Sorry, I had to
Oh,
go to the meeting. I just finished the meeting. Let me rush
it's
back.
all right, sir. So
Thank you.
I'm going to be running through the study very quickly while we wait for Farm Tosi and AME. Okay, I prepared something very brief. The study is currently in review, so I might not be able to share explicit details about it. But of course, I'm sure what I have should be enough to give us some insight into what I did. Okay. Okay. So I worked on the implications of failure on students who have repeated a class or more in the Faculty of Pharmacy, Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, as my final year project. And okay, I think I'll just give some background into how this came by in the first place. So this was me just coming into the 500 level of Ife Pharmacy at the time. And the only thing I was sure of about my project was that I did not want it to be in a lab. I was the kind of pharmacy student that did not really enjoy lab work so much. So I was looking for something in pharmacy administration that I would find enjoyable. So I walked up to my supervisors then, Dr. Jegede. He is a lecturer in the Faculty of Pharmacy, the Department of Clinical Pharmacy and Pharmacy Administration. Just tell him about this. And one thing he made clear right from the get-go was that because a lot of us then ran to admin, pharmacy admin, because we thought it was easy. And he pointed it out to me that it was not going to be easy. As a matter of fact, it was going to be as engaging as possible. And I did not have any problem with that, as long as I did not have to go to a lab. That was my only criteria. And a few weeks by, we got a list of topics to pick from. And I saw this on the list, the implications of failure of students who had repeated a class. And for some strange reason, I could relate with this personally because I had to take the 400 level class again. And I knew that I was not the same person that I was taking the class again that I was that I was in the first attempt. And at the time, there were corridor talks about how failure affected students. That okay, some people fail courses and they go on to be the ways of the class. I mean, if you see someone that repeats a class and all of a sudden is the bad guy of the class, and you wonder what changed. And at the same time, on the other end, there are people that fail and never really quite recover from it. So it begs the question, what's happening? What does that failure do exactly? And
Great.
I found this study interesting in that sense. That was the perspective, that was the picture I saw then and there. And I took up the topic. Now, I'm just going to move on now. So yes, the first slide was the problem.
Do you mind I interrupt you quickly?
Oh, please do.
Oh, thank you. So thank you again for being on this webinar. We just had our interesting guest step in, Professor Chimeze Anyakora. You are welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Yeah, it's a pleasure having you. I know it was so impromptu, but when you heard it was about students, I mean, there was a kind of interest I saw in you. I heard in your voice. I was like, yes, this is great. You are welcome, sir.
Thank you so much.
Professor Chimeze Anyakora used to be a lecturer in the Faculty of Pharmacy, University of Lagos, in the Department of Pharmaceutical Chemistry and Drug Development, and then went on to become the chief of party, United States Pharmacopoeia's program on promoting quality of medicines, and is also the chief executive officer of Bloom Public Health. You are welcome, sir. It's really great to have you here.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes. Do you want us to have you now?
If you want, yes, because if it's possible, that way I mean, if I'm not interrupting, maybe we can finish. Then if I don't interrupt him, otherwise, there's impromptu. I came in. I won't be till the end of the program. Just came to deliver and
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think it's fine. Let's have you speak to the our students, audience, young pharmacists around the world. Actually, we have people not just in Nigeria on this webinar. So you are welcome, sir. Please take the lead. Take the floor.
Thank you so much, Tosin. I'm so excited to be here. Really, this is something that I've been looking forward to. You called me on Saturday night. I said, no, if it's for this purpose, I'm going to be here. So I'm going to just, according to what Tosi told me to do, to go through a few points. First of all, I look at my career and then how my research skills have helped equip me for USP work, and how Bloom Public Health will promote research and pharmaceutical quality, and finally, opportunities I see. The fourth one is what I'm so interested in, really. So I'm going to run through the first three, because this audience is the best audience for me to look at this. Because over these years of being in the sector, I think we need to get young pharmacists to start thinking how to take over the sector in Africa. All through my period in USP, my focus has been, I want Nigeria in the next 5 years or so, not just to be exporter of medicines across the continent, but exporter of pharmaceutical expertise across the continent. So that's, for me, so exciting. So talking to this audience, my hope is that in the next 2-3 years, I'll see that happening from this audience. So let me start basically from, I will run through, because I will have quite some time for questions. So I'm going to be quite quick with most of the topics. I was in faculty of pharmacy for more than a decade, at the University of Lagos. One thing that I think made me stand out was the thing of research. Research is what changes everything for you. It gives you the confidence that you don't even, people cannot have. Your age, you are, whatever you are, if you are somebody who does research. Not just research as a way of getting results and publishing, research as a way of life, meaning that ability to interrogate things, to ask questions, to know that nobody was born with any knowledge. Nobody. Whoever that you see or you hear that is doing very well, just a matter of discipline and focus. When our USP, what I told my team, I'll be jumping here and there, so eventually we'll come together. What I keep telling my team, each person I call them, tell me one part of the pharmaceutical sector that I want to be the best in the world in the next 5 years. And they just tell me, okay, this particular one, now let's make a plan. How do we get it done? Why am I saying this now? I'm saying because I know all of you here, young, enterprising, trying to conquer the world. If you get one thing from me, get this. Nobody has anything in his head without putting it there. So we shouldn't feel inferior or feel intimidated by anybody. Instead, we should feel motivated, inspired to do the same. Everything anybody is doing all over the world, the best human beings on the planet, they just one day decided, I want to be the best in this field, and then go for it. So having said this, so while at University of Lagos, I call as a master's student. When I finished my master's, I was there many years ago, before most of you are born. That was 2001 or so, 2001, more or less. So I wanted to go to present my research work in, it was a conference in Holland, Netherlands. I mean, I didn't have money, I didn't have anything. I said, I'm going to go. What gives me so much joy is the power of dream. I said, I'm going to go for this. Then Nigeria was like, people were not traveling that much to go for conferences. So I was going to go. Then there was no internet as you have it now. You have to go to Cyber Cafe. I mean, it was a crazy thing. In fact, that time I had to write a mail, respond, and you keep writing and writing. That year I missed it. But for me, I learned something. I missed it because I did not apply for the visa on time. I got my paper accepted. I didn't get the funding, but I was going to mobilize funding locally. So it was so I had to go back and regroup and think, how do I solve this? Of course, I learned something. if you want to go for conference, you have to plan on time, all the things that are required to do. So in 2002, I tried again. So I applied, I got funded. People were surprised. I mean, you are just a master student. What do you know? So I got a scholarship. I got funded. Then was a lot of money for me, $2,000. With that, I could fly to Canada, stayed in Canada for maybe 10 days, came back with some money. So it was like exciting for me. Of course, one thing that did for me, I started having networks. So basically, why am I saying this? Exposure, what does it do to you? It helps you know that these guys are people like you. All the big names you are hearing over coffee, you just talk to them. I was the only Nigerian from Nigeria. In fact, a few Nigerians from the US were so excited, and then of course I made so many friends. One of the friends I made, I'm going here and there, became eventually director of USP, Patrick Lukule, Dr. Lukule. Eventually, when I had to become USP chief of party, I mean, I'll get back to that. So basically, I made a lot of friends, and then came back. Of course, that opened my mind. And that was the beginning of my research endeavor. While at University of Lagos, of course, I entered my PhD. My PhD was very, very fast in Unilag. I mean, one among the fastest, really. Within 2.5 years, I was done. People were saying, this boy, where is he coming from? Because I was so focused. How did I do it? Let me tell you, I focus on the problem. What I do, which I want you to, what I want you to communicate. I look at what I want to achieve. What are the means available to me? There was no lab I could do. By the way, let me just go back. For my conference, I did something on vitamin C. Then there was no HPLC in any university in Nigeria. I did it at EMSOS. My friend, at NAFDAC, I sneaked in to somebody, he went to NAFDAC and did the analysis for me and brought it back. But I knew I couldn't go to a conference and present something I lost in HPLC in my life. How will I do it? So I talked to a friend to sneak me into EMSO to go and see the machine for me. When I get there, they ask me, how does he look? I say that I know how he looks. So I sneaked into EMSO to at least have a look at HPLC for the first time in my life. So before going for that conference. So that gave me confidence too. You don't go to a conference and you're talking to people you've not seen HPLC before. Anyway, so fast forward. So my PhD period, there was no equipment anywhere, but I wanted to do my PhD. And I was doing it in Nigeria. My doing in Nigeria was actually for a reason. I wanted to be in Nigeria for some reason, because when I was in Canada, so many people were so excited about me. They offered me so much. Come and start immediately. In fact, somebody told me, don't go back. They will kill you. Like, Africa is terrible. I said, no, I want to go back. I have reason to be in Nigeria. So I could do my PhD anywhere at that point because of that exposure. I want to do it in Nigeria. So what I did, I needed an equipment which I didn't have in Nigeria. I wrote to every lab that I knew, more than 100. I just across Europe and the US, telling my story. I wanted to do my PhD. This is my problem. I want to come and do research, spend some time in your lab. Many did not reply. Some replied and told you why they couldn't do it. But I continued. Eventually, one replied. Eventually, I was able to get a lab in the US, in San Francisco. Why am I saying this? The first 2 said no. Maybe the first 10 said no. I don't know how many said no. I wrote a lot. I wanted to reach anybody I could reach. Eventually, I got a lab. I did my PhD. And of course, there too was a bit of trying moment there, as if we are not getting results. I practically supervised myself, really. Not supervised myself, practically did what I wanted to do. By the time I started publishing in a very top journals, I got everyone's attention. No, everybody said, wow, what's this guy up to? Really, I came in, I went there. I know how to challenge myself. I was reading a lot of papers. I read something. This guy, I can do this guy is doing. Why can't I do it? I analyzed so many papers that have been written, and I was in the lab. So my first paper, unlike most Nigerians, was one of my best, top. I told myself, no, this guy's Journal of Chromatography was the best paper then for me. I saw what people are writing there. I look at what are they doing that I cannot do. So that was kind of motivation. So from there, I started doing something. Of course, when I came back, with so many good papers. Everybody was very excited about me. So in a short while, I defended my projects. So it was good. I was when was it? 2005, 2006, whatever. So, and of course I got employed. Another thing, when I got employed in Unilag to be a lecturer in 2005, July. I don't know whether there has been any person who has risen so fast before. 2005 July, I was a lecturer 1 or lecturer 2. By 2008, I was a senior lecturer. So that was quite fast. I mean, that wasn't by chance, it was hard work. So, I mean, it was really hard work. I mean, basically, so why am I saying this? Research, most people focus mainly on the limitations. You can look at the opportunities involved, really. It will never stop. Even in the US, people have limitations. What you want to do and make a choice. I mean, you can decide to be here or to anywhere you are, doesn't really matter. More and more, during my time, on those days, I mean, 20, 15 years ago, it was different. You are much limited. Now you are not. Internet has made things so easy. From here, I am able to interact with people, to have meetings all over the world. There's no limitation anymore. So those who are coming up now, you're even much more advantageous than me at that point. So basically, with that, I focused on research. At the point, University of Lagos made me the best researcher of the year. That was one of the landmarks at 2009. So many people were not happy. Young boy, young boy from nowhere. All my colleagues at the faculty, I became enemies of many people. Who are this young boy? Where is he coming from? Of course, I was focused really. I didn't want to enter any local politics. I wanted to focus. This is what I want to do. And what gives you joy is you set a target and get it. It's tough. Most times you cry because you want to say target is too high. You see yourself falling flat. But when I go back and look at, I feel I'm falling flat now. I'm done well. So you look back and say, not that bad. Because sometimes it can be tough. Feel that you're aiming so high. Really. So basically, I'm saying this because all these things have been very helpful to me. I'm focusing on research, trying to get known. At a point, it's a field I focused on more of a tiny field. At a point, if you search for that topic on Google, my name appeared. This is not by chance. You have somebody I wanted to do that, really. So what am I trying to tell you? Whatever you are doing here in Nigeria, you can do much more. So fast forward, at a point, while I was in the university, Unilag, I was doing a lot of support to the industry, manufacturers and the NAFDAC. I did a lot to support because I am super patriotic. I mean, if you know me, I'm not nationalistic, but patriotism, I love Nigeria so much. I mean, I could have left Nigeria many years ago. I mean, because all through my period in Unilag, right now it's easy for many lecturers to travel. I was going for conferences several throughout the year. People say that I'm going to a conference if I'm going to Joe Legba. But why was it happening? Because I dared to dream. My colleagues didn't want to, but now it's changed. I applied for conferences, I applied for grants. I got a lot of grants. Because for me it was even good because I would go and come back with some change. They give you grants. I mean, you manage it, make sure you come back. Even if it's $200 or $100, it's something good. But I was fully funded. I was quite lucky. Not just luck, but I tried. Most people don't try. What I've seen over these years is that a lot of timidity. People are timid, really. They don't try. Nobody has two heads. You have to go there and get involved. And you fail, you fail. I mean, what do I have to lose? I have to try. So I tried a lot, many conferences. I put my paper and I had a good time, really. During my researches, I'm still a researcher. I had a very good time. I had so many contacts across the world. Up till now, I have so many people across who trust you, believe in you because they've touched you. One thing is to be by email. I go for conferences, they see you deliver, they see this young African. But there was one, some of the conferences, usually they put all the countries coming. Whenever some Nigerians from the US see Nigeria, they start looking for me. So I'm the only person that will be there. So it was really good. I mean, I enjoyed myself really. So I was supporting the industry, supporting NAFDAC, because I became quite good in chromatography. I tried to really become an expert in chromatography. I was really good there. As a matter of fact, at the point I had a HPLC in my own lab in the University of Lagos, the only HPLC there. How did I get it? Dare to dream. I asked Sanofi Sanofi in the US. This is what I'm doing. I'm limited by research. You guys have HPLC. You discard every 2-3 years. So eventually they got it for me. I got it for the university. You know, while I was in uni, like I did a lot for this university. Once I went to Canada, I brought quite some lab equipment. I got back, they said they wouldn't pay for it. I was so angry. I mean, I spent my time to bring you just to pay small money to clear it. They said, no, it's not for university. Who will pay for it? So I got angry. I gave it away. I told somebody, clear it, and I took a few things from it. My intention was to get to university. And that time when I was bringing my HPLC for the university, it was crazy. They didn't want the bureaucracy of the university system. So I started becoming, in midst of this mess, how can I do well? So I started doing that. Another thing that was a crazy thing. I had a friend, I had a younger colleague who is doing very well in Unilag now. She was trying to do her PhD. She needed to get a lab outside. What I did, I got my contacts in University of Pennsylvania to give her a lab, to a lab space. This man, professor, was so excited. He said, you know what? Let me do something for Unilag. Let me sign an MOU with Unilag and University of Pennsylvania so that anybody can come and go. I mean, it was a very big stuff. They pushed it. They never done it before. Even in the US, people didn't even have that access to UPenn. It's one of the Ivy League schools. They pushed it. The school signed. He came to University of Lagos to sign. It was a crazy thing. Months and months and months. They were telling us of story. Why should they? The guy couldn't believe it. I mean, that you guys sort of rushing to. I mean, but I stayed back. I kept pushing him because this lady needed to do a PhD. I pushed it for 6 months. Every year I go to visit his office. What is going on? These people are waiting for her. Eventually they signed it. She did her PhD and then came back. But of course that opportunity died because really they saw that the University of Lagos wasn't serious if you are not even eager and pushing. Anyway, that's by the way. So basically, over these years, I continued supporting, doing my research, trying to stand out, trying to write, read a lot of papers. And then eventually the opportunity came to support USP. I had a good time really across Africa. I traveled a lot. Then my colleagues were surprised. This small boy, we are going over the way. USP was taking me across Africa. I had a good time. Before then, I hadn't done across Africa. I did more of Europe, US. So I was going over the place, good time. Have a good time. USP fund, you go there, best hotel, a vehicle hotel, all the stuff around you. I mean, I had a good time. I continued that for a while. So I was combining with my university. Because at the point, as an academic, I mean, of course, the politics around it, I told myself, I'm not going to be involved in whether promotion or no promotion because I done well. I mean, I did very well because most of my colleagues, in less than 2-3 years, I was already 2 jumps senior lecturer. Most of my colleagues are, who's this small boy who came before you? I've been here for 10 years and then you are still, so I knew it was not going to be very easy. So I focused on making a wider impact. Anyway, fast forward, I started supporting USP. Why did I go for that? It was so exciting for me. I love Nigeria so much. I still feel that the Nigerian pharmaceutical sector is not doing well at all. And we are all guilty. Last time I had the meeting with Mazi, what I told him, and I think he's already buying into it fully. You cannot complain. Who will do it? Somebody has to do it. You have to step up and do it. Pharmaceutical sector in Nigeria is so weak. While at USP, why supporting people? It pains me to see a company, they want to do small adjustments, maybe to qualify something, equipment, they go to India. Who is this? Who are they? Do they have 2 heads? Why should we go there? And not only to go there, it takes you 6 months to do what you can do in 2 days. First of all, send them, they'll come and have a look at it, they send you a bill, get visa. I mean, I became pained. So that was when that revolution for me started. You have to change this sector. One thing I have to leave to the next generation is that Nigeria becomes the exporter of pharmaceutical expertise. That's really my dream. First thing I did while at USP, I told my colleagues at the US, please, we don't want you to come here again. I'm going to pull a team. They will do everything we need to do here. It was a bit of fight. So I'll tell you, just leave it to me. I'm an academic, I'm a teacher, I'm a researcher. We will make it happen. I pull people from NAFDAC, from the industry. I mean, my former student, Unilag, we came together. I told them, know what? It's a matter of patriotism. We have to stop people from coming here to give support to Nigerians. That was a bit tough. So how will it happen? But it happened. Why? Nobody comes, nobody has two heads. Whatever you need, expertise you lack, go for it. Somebody will, for 10 years said, I don't know. What can you not know? I mean, yes, but if you don't know now, but next year, if you still don't know, it's stupid. I mean, you don't have to know now, but now, I don't know now, yes, but I have to make a plan to know, because the person that knows it, the only people that know don't have it born with. So really, and that's one of my greatest joy. In a short while, my team in Nigeria, we did quite well. The industry felt the impact of USP in Nigeria. NAFDAC, all the NAFDAC labs were accredited. I mean, we did a lot, really. And it showed that Nigerians are sharp. We go all over the world, they are doing well. We come to Nigeria, everybody is timid and feel that all Indians will come and solve a problem. So now, we'll take that fight further. I mean, at USP, I did a lot of push because I wanted to change things. Of course, people say, this guy, are you working for USP, working for Nigeria? So I have to be moderate my things. Also, when I go across Africa for different meetings in the Ethiopia, the African Union, I still feel pained. Let me give you an example. In 2002, there's a program called Global Fund. Global Fund is set up to support developing countries. Every year, they send medicines worth millions of dollars to different countries. Let me give you an example. Nigeria, on January 1, the next grant will start. Nigeria will receive $900 million for medicines to support HIV, AIDS, TB, and malaria. None of this will be bought in Nigeria. They will buy it from some other these countries. I had a forum the other day. I was with the Ministry of Health too. I know 2002 Nigerians couldn't do it. I can't accept that 2020 we are still relying. So when will you start? This is one of the things that pain me. So I left USP to set up Bloom Public Health. Bloom Public Health is here to lead a revolution. Nigeria should not stop. We are sharp people. Our manufacturers have money, they spend money, so what's the missing link? You need somebody to stand up, and push it. So my focus at Bloom is to change narratives. We cannot continue to be reliant on we have more pharmacy schools than anywhere in the continent. We have what exactly do we need? We need people to start thinking differently. So Bloom is trying to push that. It's an not advocacy, but activism in a way, or activism of carrying placard, but activism of getting things done, knowledge, showing that it's possible. Yeah, because it's when you have knowledge, you're able to stand and face people and discuss. But if you don't have knowledge, you get intimidated by everything. So our focus at Bloom, first of all, is to change narratives. We want to make sure Nigeria, nobody will come to Nigeria and say that Nigerians cannot produce quality medicines. It's not possible. Everything is, things have changed. Knowledge is available to everybody. So we're pushing that. That's our push, really. We are doing a lot of things. A few things we are doing. In fact, on Wednesday, I'll be leading a workshop we are leading for all the MRAs, Medicine Regulatory Authorities, they are head across Africa. I want to introduce them, all of them across Africa, because Bloom is not just for Nigeria, it's for Africa. Introduce to them. There is a program called Pharmaceutical Inspection Corporation Scheme. It's a scheme where different countries belong to. If you belong to this, it means that you are a regulator, that is an NAFDAC kind of thing. You are whatever you do is accepted globally. No, only South Africa is a member. I want to see how can we get more countries in Africa to be part of it. So the first thing we are doing, we are working with Geneva, the head office of these PICs in Geneva to get this done, at least to tell Africans it's not rocket science. It may not have it now, but you should have a plan to have it. So hopefully in the next 5 years, I hope to see what I can have at least 5 to 10 or African countries being part of it. Also in Nigeria, we're doing a different thing. We're doing we're trying to set up a pharmaceutical park. We're working with NAIP. It's something that is so dear to me. What we want to do, leapfrog. You see, you don't have to, the history of pharmaceutical manufacturing in Nigeria is exciting. People say from their kitchen, they move. So, we don't have to go through that route anymore. You can start with what is happening now. Because GMP is a constant, is evolving. You don't, I mean, every day something happens, there's an accident, something happens, okay, you make another law to tighten safety. Anything is happening, it's really. So what you are doing 10 years ago is not what is happening now. So if I'm coming to this system, I don't have to start from what happened in 1970 and no. If you're coming to manufacturing now, you start with what is the best practice right now. So which means nobody has an advantage over you. So that's really what you are pushing for. So this is pharmaceutical park. We're also pushing many other things which you don't have time for. And the last, let me not say, I think I'm spending so much time. The last thing I wanted to do is to tell you what opportunities there are. I tell you, the pharmaceutical sector is a gold mine yet untapped. When I'm talking to you guys, I feel so excited. I know many people want to go and do sales rep. Yes, it's good. But I tell you, if you look at the life cycle of products from beginning to the end, to where it gets to the patient, you see so much expertise required to get things done. You can just sit down and say, I want to be an expert in dossier, You'll be the first person doing it in Nigeria. Right now, people pay millions to Indians to come here. It pains me. An Indian comes here, we have people who have heard, who are not sick, why? I don't know it now. Why can't I learn it? You want to do qualification of the equipment. You send somebody from India, you come here, where you have a Nigeria of 150 million people, 200 million people. So what is happening? I feel so ashamed. I mean, it's really, really ashamed. And what my joy is that somebody in this meeting will wake up and say, really, yes, choose something. There's a lot of money to be made in the pharmaceutical sector. Choose something and be the best in it. Our manufacturers are suffering. There's no pharmaceutical ecosystem. What is happening in Nigeria right now is water. Everything you need for the pharmaceutical sector is not sustainable. If India closes its border today, we are gone. We don't have API, you don't have, nothing is happening. In fact, something I'm doing now, another thing I didn't mention, I'm working with a company to start having a pharmaceutical grade starch. So this is what we're trying to do. COVID is trying to delay it. So they were doing a full grade starch. Why can't we have pharmaceutical grade starch? Why can't we have, all this is happening, we can do them. And it is you young people. The older people they are somehow not able to do it because they are so much limited mentally. Because they feel, I mean, this is reality. I mean, I'm also among that generation, limited mentally. You guys have to sit down and ask questions. Nobody has two heads. You know, when I was USP, one of the things that made me, woke me up, a manufacturer has a problem. I asked my colleagues in the US, they tell me, I'll get back to you tomorrow. The guy will go online, check the guideline and give it to me. I said, can't I read? Me, I can't read. This guy doesn't have it in his head. Now, like, guidelines are available at you. They are all public documents. You need something, the guy goes, checks it. And so really, I want to end with saying that really, the pharmaceutical sector is a gold mine, but the only thing that is ripped by those from other countries. And we are just sleeping. We're going to keep doing sales rep all our life and getting small change. To do these companies, I know a company I was supporting. I went to look at their facilities. GMP flow. What's the GMP flow? No, GMP is all about make sure that there's no contamination. The product is of quality. So they made a mistake. HVAC. I won't go into that detail. Small mistake they made. To get it done, this company did not manufacture for 6 months. It was paining me. Why can't we do something? Really, I'm telling you. The sector is full of opportunity, a lot of opportunities for you. You guys get involved. If you're in pharmacy, don't limit yourself to. So of course, we have what we plan to do, but look at the opportunities available, the value you add, the pride of a Nigerian, knowing that I don't have to go to India and get one technician that doesn't do anything, come and be the guy. Why we cannot? So really. Bloom is here to support. I'm very excited what's happening with this forum. I'm a researcher, and that research mindset is not just about publishing papers. It's about solving problems, thinking, oh, this is a problem. How do I solve it? That's really, if you have that mindset, things will change for you. You go get a place, people, they are just say, there's a problem. Yes, I know, but solve it. Solve it. If you keep solving it, we'll see sort of all this is happening here is opportunities, a lot of opportunities are available for Nigeria, a lot. I'm telling you. I've been in this sector, even supply chain, the cold chain, so many things, just choose a sector, choose a subsector and say, I want to be an expert in this, not just an expert, not to be the best human being on the planet in this. It's possible. I've seen it. My colleagues are USP they are from different same sector. They are all trained in Nigeria. Just that demand. They want to be the best. Of course, there are a lot of trainings available. It's not just by one thing. You have to make effort to get it done. So let me not take much of your time. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I can answer some questions if you have them.
Great. Thanks so much. We're really, really happy to have you. Thanks so much. So we currently do not have any questions, but if you're live on the training and you want to ask a question, you can raise your hand and I will give you opportunity to come on and ask your question right away. Okay, I have this personal question I wanted to pose to you. When a researcher, I mean, most say 99% of researchers currently across our universities do research out of pocket. What do you advise in terms of, getting people to begin to think about grants and promoting, grant application?
Yeah, for me, what grants does for you, it gives you confidence that what you want to do has been peer reviewed and accepted as something worthwhile. So it's good to go for grants. If you are not doing grants, not just because of the money to support that research, it helps people to. So there are a lot of grants available, a lot. When I was at Unilag itself had funds for conferences. But I was the only person using it. I used all of them, but nobody was ready. Nobody has money. If you don't apply, you won't get it. Tax fund in Nigeria has a lot of money. They don't even utilize it. So many things, really. As well at USP too, I try to bring industry and academia. You see, we don't have to get millions. Start small. You graduate, keep moving. So it's very, very important that we keep going for grants. Really, something that helps you and boosts their confidence too.
And one of the things you mentioned was that it's not just about the dollars you get, but we know that when people apply for grants, they usually, when it's a large grant, there are stipends or honoraria that's available for them. Isn't that also a motivation?
It is certainly. If you apply, when I was in my time, I had a good time. Really. I went all over the world, had a good time. I mean, So I enjoy my academic life. Some people are in academic every day going on strike. Things are tough. But I can look beyond that. There are a lot of, right now, my PhD students, I send them all over the world at no cost to them. Because these are contacts. These are normal people that have grants. They want to utilize it. They want collaboration. I have a lot of collaboration going on. As a matter of fact, I didn't say this. I have an NGO called CAROS, Center for Applied Research and Computational Science. One of that, we do a research competition every year. The person that won it, one young pharmacist, fit from UNN. So we're going to do COVID is delaying us. Usually we make it open. Everybody will tell me what they are doing. We just do an abstract. We have an independent reviewer to review. Last time we was quite well applied for. So really the answer is yes, applying for grants is very good. You earn some money too. And beyond the money, you do work. No, if you are doing any work and you have what it means you need to do it, it's more motivated, really. So, and don't go for the big ones yet. You see, people start small. You have to go gradually. If you have done $5,000, $10,000, because if you want to ask me for $200,000 for research, I say, have you done $1,000 before? No. How am I sure you know how to really do it? So you have to start small. Gradually, I don't believe in I believe in the law of the farm. Gradual progression. So do something small. Aim for 10 years, but for tomorrow, what do I do? Next thing, what do I do? That way you get there. Because if you start thinking so big from the beginning, you can get discouraged totally and you don't do anything.
True. That's very true. Thanks so much. And sometimes too, collaborating with other researchers in your area, if it's a really large grant, helps. I think My second grant I ever applied for was part of a collaboration. We're just about rounding that up. And in fact, it was just a year. And I think each country was granted $5,000. But after that first year, the guys were so impressed. They rolled it over the second, rolled it over the third year. And we're about to even get an extension for another 15 months. So I completely agree with you. Quickly, we have two additional questions. Let me try and make them brief. First person says, what opportunities are available in toxicology for us as pharmacists, and how can we go about seizing them?
I mean, it's a very broad question. We have a lot of possibilities in there. All, research, there's so many things, but what I actually will advise, that's the mistake most of our colleagues are making in Nigeria. Make impact. I mean, I wasn't the most hardworking person in my department, but I was a bit more impactful than most of them. Get involved in what solves a problem. We're in Nigeria. You have many things that you cannot compete with somebody in Canada or US for some things. Well, it's a places you have an advantage. Look for local problems. I mean, you have to focus. I mean, for me, what I advise people, what are you heading to? Look for problems that you solve and make you relevant. If you're relevant in your local, if you're locally relevant, you can move up there. So toxicology is exciting. This is a very important topic, but make sure you tailor it down to something that is relevant to Nigeria. That's because a lot of, most times people want to work with somebody in the US, then NIH has a grant. You won't get it because they are looking at what will solve US problems. If you want it as a way of getting some skills, yes. But our advice, my colleagues here, focus on solving problems that are relevant to your community. It makes you more relevant. You add more value. But if you are hoping to do something globally, you have to choose. I want to be in the US in the next 3-4 years. So I have to start doing that. If you want to be like me, I want to be in Nigeria. That's my focus. So I'm trying to whatever that makes me more relevant in Nigeria, which is, I would have been different. It would be a different story if I'm thinking of going to the US. If I go to the US with my kind of research, I won't excel. But here in Nigeria, I'm solving problem for Nigerians' health system.
So the next question, please, what's the first step to starting a career in research? And probably you can take that alongside with, what did you make sure you did not do that got you this far? That was a lot of twists.
The first step, exposure. When that decision I made to go for conference after my master's degree changed everything for me. What does you see people like, when you are
Prof will be back shortly. I guess his network. Let's just hang on. Pharmacist Joba, you're still online?
We need somebody.
Okay, go on, sir.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Sorry. Yeah. Make sure, first of all, you need to want it, but put the means to get into conferences. It will help you a lot. You see that most times you underestimate what we can do. That's the issue. If you are here locally, you think that you cannot do much. By the time you go there and travel with people, you are much more exposed. You are much more confident. It's about confidence. There's a book I read when I was doing my PhD. It's called PhD is Not Enough. Meaning, most people spend years and years in the lab. They don't know when to publish. Somebody who spends less is so relevant, and because it doesn't have confidence that it has something to offer. That's the biggest hindrance to people excelling in research. Don't underestimate yourself. Don't be scared of failing. Also, it helped me too. I was young. I didn't mind. You can laugh at me. I'll laugh at you back. I care. Am I owing you? I entered any place I wanted to enter. I wasn't ashamed of. So there where I learned. I was in all the conferences. I was doing well as a young. First of all, I was young. Most of the conferences I was quite young coming there. At the same time, from Africa, what they do. So I didn't have any shame because I know I'm disadvantaged in a way because I don't have what you have. But I'm bold. The reason why I know I can. So the answer is don't underestimate yourself. Don't be scared of making mistakes. Mistake you make today, you make it tomorrow. If you don't make it today, you make it tomorrow. So either you just go ahead, make mistake, and continue pushing it.
So much, Prof. We do appreciate you and thank you tremendously. Thanks for your time.
My pleasure. I'm so excited being here, and I'm hoping that any of you who wants can reach me. This is something I really want to push. The last message again: the sector needs you. The transformation of the transport sector to make Nigeria India of Africa is possible. But it cannot be done by Buhari, it can be done by people in this room. Say, no what, let me, next 5 years, let's divide ourselves. We're going to be the best in this. I mean, it's something that can be done. It's something that is easy to be done. It's not really, it doesn't require anything. It's just a decision to make now and give yourself time. You will get there. Thank you so much. And I wish you guys the very, very best.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thanks again for your time. And we do wish you the best of time.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay, then. Thank you.
Bye.
All right.
Pharmacist Joba. Hello, sir.
Hello from Ademi.
Great. You are welcome back. So I think we take it up from the discussion of the abstract that you had started with, and then we'll kick it up from there. Thanks so much.
Okay. So I'm just going to be very quick about it because we're so far behind time. I really thought that I'd be done now, so I'm just going to rush through. So I hope that all the questions that probably exist with regards to the work, we can have them, or I cover a lot of them in the course of the presentation because I'm just going to rush through it now. Okay, so as I was saying, this forms the problem of that gave birth to the study. I simply understood that there was a need to understand the effects of failure on students in the faculty if there was going to be any reasonable intervention. And considering the number of students that actually had repeated in each classes, this is a representation of each classes. It showed that they were significant enough to validate the study. And this, as a matter of fact, made a lot of people key into the idea of the research, of the study in itself. Thankfully, you've already gone through most of the fundamentals of research. So I'm just going to have to rush through it. So yes, you mentioned research questions. These were the research questions that guided the study. So each of these questions eventually led into an objective of the study. So for the first question, the emotional implications of academic failure, it led to us asking the questions: what emotions do students feel when they fail? And going back to literature, I got to even discover from literature that there were already some established classifications for academic emotions. So there were what were regarded as positive academic emotions and negative academic emotions. So this gave me a template to assess that, okay, based on these emotions, what emotions were dominant in students who had experienced academic failure. I think it's also important to define because failure too comes at different levels in the Faculty of Pharmacy Ife. For someone that fails just one course, you will have to resit the course at the end of the session. Results are taken at the end of every session. So if you repeat one course, you have to take that course. But if you fail that course upon a receipt, then you have to repeat the whole class. Or if you fail more than 3 courses at the first attempt, you have to repeat the whole class. So that's failure. The border mark for failure in this study was repeating a class. That was the border line for failure. of course, the second question that we asked was, what was the overall psychological effects? Because she discovered that emotions are more transient. On the long run, some of these emotions can lead to more stronger, more intense psychological effects. So that was the second objective of the study. And luckily for me, again, there was an already established scale, a validated scale. It was called the impact of event scale that measured the impact of major events on the psyche of individuals subsequently. So I only had to adopt that scale based on the realities of Ife Pharmacy. So basically, I just used the impact of event scale to assess that in the questionnaire. Now, that is. The third part was the financial implications, because one of the factors that also affected students were the cost, the extra cost that seemingly came with repeating a class. But as at the point of the study, we could not exactly pinpoint where these costs were coming from. So this study also tried to assess that, yeah, okay, if you have to repeat a class, what are the things that constitute the extra cost that comes with that? And the beautiful thing about this is that on the long run, because I used both closed and open-ended questions, on the long run, we're able to see that even outside the financial costs in this, with respect to this objective, there were some non-financial costs that were closely associated with this. We're talking about costs like time, parental affection, and things like that. So they were not exactly financial, but they were also categorized as costs in some form or sense of the word. And the last, of course, which was the most significant, was the effects of failure on the subsequent academic performance of these students. If you check that objective well enough, you'd realize that it can form a whole study by itself, because it would require having to assess academic performance and all that. So what I did with that was I divided it into four major sub objectives. So first, assessed the effects of failure on class attendance, the effect of failure on learning, and the effect of failure on test-related performance. So those were the major sub-classifications of that fourth question. And of course, okay, this is a theoretical framework. Okay.
Do you mind we quickly run a poll?
Okay.
To see how people are following with what you're talking about. So we'll quickly do a poll on research question. Don't go to the slide, so you don't give anybody expo.
Okay.
So there's a poll on your screen. Please attend to it for a chance to win a giveaway at the end. So it seems someone has clinched the giveaway.
Okay.
All right. So give me a minute while I end the poll. Okay, interesting. So as per your presentation, most people have said you can generate research questions through observation. I mean, it practically highlights what you had said. And then, of course, when we talked about validating those research questions to everybody got it right, and then the giveaway. So thank you very much for participating in the poll. Over to you again,
gave some insight, some theoretical background to the work. It guided designing a conceptual framework for the study. If you look at this very closely, you see that there are two major stages in assessing failure in students. There's a pre-failure and the post-failure phase. So the pre-failure phase really looks at causes, motivators, predictors. That's what is mostly assessed in that phase. But post-failure, of course, is the effects phase where you assess what the effects are and what possible interventions can come in. Now, another important thing to look at in this framework is coping, because you discover that a lot of students have coping mechanisms post-failure. Now, if these coping mechanisms are maladaptive, as is shown here, you tend to have long-term negative outcomes. But if the coping mechanisms are adaptive, you tend to have positive long-term outcomes. So this shows that the coping mechanisms play a major role in what the eventual outcome of a student is post-failure. So that in itself necessitates this kind of study. Because interestingly, when I put it online, after I've completed the study, I just put, normal finished project upload. There were a lot of feedback. Some didn't quite understand the need for this kind of study. Some didn't even find it pharmaceutical at all. And I found it quite interesting because it's so 20th century to think that pharmacy these days is all about pestles and mortars. No. I mean, now we're all finding how you can adopt knowledge from other spheres to improve the practice. So yes, that led to this. This was the conceptual framework of the work. So as I said, my work started from the post-failure phase. So the first thing is academic failure. We assess the emotional implications, the psychological implications, financial implications, and of course, any other possible implications. But you see that the emotional and psychological implications are quite related, because most times, most of these psychological implications, they come from long-term, feeling these emotions on the long term. So for instance, if someone feeling an emotion like sadness recurrently, that such a candidate is at risk, higher risk of trauma, post-traumatic stress disorders, and other major psychological effects. So that's why those are related. And of course, all comes back to coping. So the coping is what eventually determines what the long-term effects are, which of course affects the subsequent academic performance of such students. So this was the method. You already mentioned most of this. I might not have to start explaining through. It was a cross-sectional survey between students at the time, 200 to 500 level students, because those were the only students in the faculty. In pharmacy, the 100 level is for everybody. You belong to the science faculty. So you start core pharmacy courses from 200 level. That's why the 100 level students were exempted. And yes, of course, inclusion criteria, you had to have repeated a class or more. And of course, considering the emotional risk associated, because studies like this constitute a major emotional risk. So we look out for people who we try to minimize that risk in people. So that's where that part comes in. And of course, consent. We had to get consent from everybody. We tell them what the questionnaires were about before giving them. Stratified random sampling was used. You already mentioned what random sampling was earlier, but now we had to stratify because we had classes involved. We could not just sample randomly across. We wanted a certain percentage from each class at the minimum. So it had to be stratified based on the classes. And yes, a semi-structured questionnaire, including some open and closed-ended questions and Likert scales was used. But of course, it was pre-tested. And I think we got a Chromback alpha value of 0.81. But the point is that it was pre-tested, despite it being some of the components being already established. You're talking about the impact of event scale, which was already validated and all that. So it was pre-tested, and the data obtained was analyzed subsequently. So that summarizes the method. And the findings, I was going to share some charts and all that earlier, but because of our time, I'm just going to run through it. So for the emotional implications, as I said earlier, there was already a laid down template negative academic emotions, positive academic emotions. So for positive academic emotions, we're looking at emotions like happiness, hope, satisfaction, enthusiasm. For negative academic emotions, we're looking at sadness, anger, hopelessness, boredom, disappointment. And these were the dominant emotions that the study showed. A lot of respondents felt these emotions. So it was quite the significant part. But there was just one positive academic emotion that showed some level of response among in the study, and that was hope. A couple of them still showed that they were hopeful despite having experienced failure. So I think that's was that about. And of course, the impact of event scale, the average score that was gotten at the end of the analysis showed that most of the respondents suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder post-failure. So they most of, though although they might not know it, because a lot of them don't even know what PTSD is, but they suffered PTSD that from the score that we obtained. Because what the impact of event scale does is it's based on the score you get at the end of the day. It gives you what for people that are fine, people that are at risk, people that are suffering already from PTSD, and that's what we obtain from that. The financial costs largely include tuition, accommodation, feeding, transport, personal upkeep costs. So those were the huge chunk of what constituted the financial costs for students who had repeated a class, the cost of failure to them. And the last part, which of course is quite very important, the effects on subsequent performance, will show that most of the emotions, because it was linked back to the emotional implication, most of these emotions, sadness, hopelessness, disappointment, they affected learning, class attendance, and test performance subsequently. For one, emotions like boredom, they were very recurrent in class attendance for students who are repeated. So there was a very strong relationship with them. I could not go so, because as I mentioned earlier, like this in itself is enough to constitute a study. And I was already printing a lot of papers. So, but I'm hopeful that, of course, maybe someone else is going to pick it up from where I stopped. But there was quite some relationship between those emotions and the subsequent performance of these students, which I believe would be very vital piece of information to any form of intervention that might come in, student counselors, faculties, and all that. So yes, that in itself was eureka for me. That was my eureka moment, discovering that connection. I think that summarizes it. Thank you very much. I had to rush to because of our time.
I understand. Thanks
It's
so very much, sir.
Pleasure's all mine.
There was something you mentioned that I felt was kind of very interesting.
Okay.
You talked about that some of the questions were sensitive.
Yes.
Okay, so what did you do to assure that you were going to be, you would not cause any harm?
Okay. I think first things first, all questionnaires were anonymous. So that promise of anonymity was reinstated. I stated it at every point. And of course, as I mentioned, even in the course of getting an ethical approval, I needed to show a consent document. So
Oh, excellent.
everybody that filled the questionnaire, we had to be informed of the risk, the emotional risk associated with the question, and they had to agree with agree ahead. I agree with, so they had to give their consent before they fill the questionnaire. So they were well
Great.
aware of the risk.
Great. So while you hold it there, let's quickly take another poll and see how well everyone is attentive. Pharmacist Joba,
Yes.
you're a poet.
Yes, I am. On some days of the week.
So how did you get into poetry? Hello?
Hello.
Okay, yeah, you're back now.
Oh, yes, yes. You said, how did I get
Into poetry.
Okay. How did I get into poetry? I think I'm going to credit this one to one of my editors. I'm quite the adventurous person. I like to try things out, especially things that are still within my reach. So getting into the faculty, I joined the editorial arm of PANS. In Ife, we call it Farmer Vox. I joined that arm, and I did not like poetry. So we had an editor once. That's Fam Adiola. She made all of us try out things that we did not like. So if you, as a writer, did not like essays, you had to try out essays for a week. And of course, trying didn't just mean writing. You had to start from reading. So I think that's how I started my romance with poetry. Really, I started from reading poems, and it's exposed a whole new world to me where you could say something in plain sight and still not say it in plain sight. So I mean, you read poems, and a lot of people don't understand, but your message is there. It's clear. The ones that get it, get it.
True. Excellent. So the results are in.
Okay.
When do I need ethical approval for my research?
Every single
Everybody
time.
voted for the right answer.
Yeah.
And then, what is the body that provides ethical clearance? I mean, the name sometimes varies from place to place,
True.
but most universities have it as Research and Ethics Committee.
Yeah.
You know,
It's right.
excellent. So we still have some more polls coming up,
Okay.
and some of them are backed up with giveaways. So I think over to you again. You talked
Okay.
about being involved with literature, writing, and then how has it affected your outlook on life?
Well, the thing about reading poetry is that it's really poetry by other people, is that it helps you see things. In fact, I don't even think it's limited to poetry. Reading other people generally helps you see things from their perspective. And that's the mistake a lot of us make, because the mind is a very, very wonderful invention, the human mind. So while you're seeing this as a computer, you'd be shocked that if someone else just makes a poem or writes something about it, it's seeing something much more complicated. So that in itself sometimes is what we need. That third eye on some issues, on even on life generally. So I think yes, that it affects the way I see things. Every single time, I always want that third opinion. Okay, I'm seeing it this way, but I'd like to know what this person thinks. So I could Google up if there are poems around it, if there are essays around it, if there's anything that's been written around it. So that, yes, I always value that third perspective.
Did it also somehow, because there was some depth to the research you did, I mean,
Okay.
considerably, you actually looked beyond just writing questions. You looked at the framework established around your research question. So did it affect how you finally went? I mean, that's your poetry side.
Okay.
Did it also influence how you went about your data collection?
I think again, I'll still have to credit people for that. I already mentioned that I'm a third perspective person, so I like to hear people's thoughts. Now, luckily for me, I had amazing supervisors. I mean, experienced and diligent supervisors, Dr. Ojegede and Professor Wilson Heron of Faculty of Pharmacy. They are people that commit to process. So for every step of the way, they ensured that you did things correctly. If it meant sitting you down and schooling you on what you had to do, what research was and what you were trying to achieve, they didn't mind. So they ensured that I was diligent in all that throughout the research process, even validating questionnaires and all that. Because if you find out, especially when it comes to projects, a lot of people these days just do what they like and go. They really don't care about process. But my supervisors were very particular about process because it had to be published, and if it had to be published, it had to be standard. So there was that motivating factor. But just as you said, being someone who had repeated before and someone who loved the third perspectives, because I had friends who had also repeated and I saw what it did to them. People lost themselves. I mean, I once made a poem in the middle of the night when we were trying to read for an exams about dying without dying because we were literally just dead men walking that night. But no, we could not sleep. So it's perhaps is what inspired that depth that yes, it could not just be superficial, But if the work is any standard, I think that all that credit goes to my supervisors. They were the ones that ensure that I committed to all the essential processes.
Interesting. There's also something. Sometimes students would pull up a research, proposal.
Okay.
And then what they have is quite it's thorough.
Mm-hmm.
But then what they implement on the field is different. What do you have to say about that?
I think that should not entirely be on the student, because I mean, for a final year project, you have to acknowledge the fact that these are people doing research for probably the first time. That's where that oversight is important.
Very true.
I imagine if I had just picked my topic and gone into the field, I would have probably just come up with a lot of gibberish. So that oversight role is important, especially for final year students who are just starting out with research. Okay, the supervisors have to commit. Some might be easier. It might be easier for some because maybe from volunteering and all that, some people have some experience with research. It might be easier for those kind of people. But for people starting out for the first time who have never done one, even literature review, the smallest type of literature review, some people have never tried out. Talk less, coming up with the whole thesis. So it's important that oversight role is so important. If you're going to do anything standard, anything that's going to be publishable, yes.
So that means it's important to also look to the quality of supervision.
Yes, yes.
Excellent. So on that note, we'll quickly take a poll on data collection. Okay. And hopefully we see some good results. So you do have a published work, right?
Yes. Yeah. But I don't like to call it my work because it's
it's
work,
collaborative.
Yes, it is.
Okay, excellent. Are you able to read some part of it?
Well, I want to look at it because it might be boring to non-IFE graduates. The book is titled "Why I Sing Great IFE at Weddings."
Why I Sing Great
IFE at Weddings.
Weddings.
It was my parting gift to IFE for being such a fun place for me, for making me who I am. And I tried to collect experiences from other people. I mean, there were 23 other amazing contributors in that work. Some sent in poems, some sent in stories, essays, some sent in photography, just photographs, very lovely photographs. So it's a collective work, but okay, I think I could just read my favorite, something very short.
Yes, that'd be awesome.
Okay. So, as I said, it might be boring to you if you are not an IFE person, but great IFE.
Okay, if you attended IFE, post for solidarity in the comment section, and then we will listen. Right, okay. Go, Pharmacist Jova.
All right, so it's titled Getting a Degree, and it's by Dimeji Ogunroti. You are here like an empty bottle. A voice calls to you from a place you've never been. You've got a death wish, but little will. If you have a voice, all you will say is that OAU is a horse ride, OAU is a backbreaker, OAU is a cheap high, OAU is a long hangover. Don't we all fail as humans? The sad thing about being human is that when we fall, we don't break into silver pieces of beauty like bottles. We can only pick up our scratched frames and pull up our underwear, use some mouthwash, harm ourselves with a smile and some mascara, and continue. OAU is a floating swan. OAU is a bat in flight. OAU is a glorious dawn. OAU is a dusk in sight. The first time you sang Great Ife, you raised your voice and basked in the song. They told you it's going to be for learning and culture, but you ignored sports and struggle. That is where it all went wrong. Getting a degree is a dance with insanity. It makes you age faster than time. It is a cup that you overfill with oil, then with sweat, before it asks for your blood. It strips you of your humanity before feasting on your rationing. When it ages you like time and discards your shriveled self-esteem like an orange skin and leaves you in the rain, weeping like a lost broom, wondering how you got there.
Interesting.
Thank you.
Have you ever heard maybe some OAU grads say to you that we were sitting at a table and we just read this while maybe sharing some communion? Have you heard that?
The thing about OU grads is that rather than read poetry, they will sing that song. So they will just sing that. It's easier to just sing that song for us than to commune over. Maybe if you find one or two literati, you might try to read something. But nah, it's always the Great Ife song. That song is spiritual.
Wow. Okay, so Joy is from Ife. Chinemema is from Ife. Wow, awesome to have all of you on this
Great
webinar.
Ife.
Great. I hope I'm permitted. Okay, so this is what we saw in the poll.
Okay.
So data collection does not have to rigorously follow the system described in your methods. True or false? False. It has to rigorously follow your methods. And then follow up in choosing a sample, which is the most rigorous but most advisable one? Probability sampling. I mean, that was what pharmacist Joba used in his research. So thank you everyone for participating in that poll. We still have, I think, 2 more or so coming up. And thanks to the winners. I think that's Samson, right? Samson Olaoye. Congratulations. Okay. Now in making progress, I wanted to ask you, so what are the implications of your findings? What do you hope to, what do you hope personally to do with your findings, or who do you think can do something about your findings?
Okay. In the course of this study, my literature review, I discovered that, for one, pharmacy education in Europe and America, because I try to use them as models. In Europe, the UK largely was regulated by the General Pharmaceutical Council.
Yeah.
In America, it was regulated by the, I think, Accreditation for Pharmacy Education, APC.
Yeah, like colleges around states.
So one of the requirements for setting up a faculty at all was having student support services.
Wow.
That was one of the requirements. So, and even in America, you discover that it goes even beyond just the student and staff support services. Because you discover that it's a roller coaster, really. Pharmacy education is not beans, in quotes. So there's always going to be that. You can't say we should remove failure. Fine, we can take some steps to minimize, but it's not totally inevitable.
True.
But it should not mean the end. For students, we can significantly reduce the rates of attrition by paying attention to what happens post-failure. Okay. And that's where we might be getting things wrong. A lot of people post-failure, you see them they start threatening you that, oh, if you repeat again, you're going to be withdrawn. That's not what the person needs at that point, because the failure by itself already has some implications. It's already costing the person some things. So you want to intervene properly. You want to ensure that the person is using the right coping mechanism and all that. So yes, the faculty itself, that's the faculty institution that is providing the learning. Of course, PCN being the regulatory body can maybe put it in their requirements, as I've said in the models, in their requirements to have some of these support services. And of course, there are other stakeholders that might also benefit from this information. I'm talking about parents, because as I said, some part of the non-financial cost mentioned was parental affection. Parents, lecturers. In Ife, we run a staff advisory system that's quite effective for those that use it. I don't know how it is in other schools, but that puts lecturers in an interesting spot. It means that they could benefit from the findings of that study. That, okay, once a person fails, there are certain things to look out for. and the best intervention schemes to implement at that point. So yes, of course, it's the beginning of something. It's not. It's definitely not concluded. There's still a lot of studies that can be done around it to further better it. I mean, looking for the best intervention schemes, looking for specific markers, maybe even motivators and predictors and all that. So, yes, I think the study is valuable to stakeholders in pharmacy education in Nigeria, for one. Sadly, it was limited to Ife. The study was limited to Ife. But of course, I've already gotten some calls on how to.
Implement.
Yes, anyway, I'm going to elaborate. I mean, do
Okay.
something on a larger scale. Say,
Okay.
explore some other pharmacy schools in Nigeria, maybe even Africa. But
Excellent.
COVID has put everything on hold. I mean, there's not even school now. Talk less.
Yeah, I don't think COVID should put things on hold. If you look at what we shared initially about research, especially surveys,
Okay.
there's something I think
Digital
might be beneficial.
questionnaires.
Yes. So you can
Okay.
actually use web-based questionnaires.
Yeah.
You know.
Interestingly, even mine was web based. I
Oh,
collected all my data
interesting.
online.
Oh, so I
I
mean,
mean, Survey Monkey,
you
Google
can
Forms.
practically
Those are the names.
deploy. You can deploy across Africa. I mean, you don't have to wait until COVID is over.
Oh
You
no,
know, that's it
definitely,
here.
definitely. We're really looking at it. Yes,
Yeah.
web-based question. I think it even makes the work easier because instead of the old traditional process of having to input the data from the paper questionnaires, you
Yes.
already have some level of collation.